Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Chris Winter, and in this video I'm going to do an in-depth comparison between two cameras. Firstly, the brand new Nikon D500 and also the Canon 80D. Now, even though these two cameras are quite different and they are in different price ranges, I got a lot of requests to do it, so I thought I'd make a little bit of a video for you guys. And guys, if you haven't seen it yet, definitely make sure to check out my brand new list, the top cameras for under $2,000. Now, it's just been updated with a couple of these cameras, so if you want to check it out, I'll put a link in the description box below. But anyway, let's take a look at both of these cameras. So let's start off this comparison by taking a look at the build quality of both of these cameras. Now, to start off, when you pick up the Nikon D500, you immediately feel just how big it is. It's actually quite a large camera, but not super heavy. It's got a slightly different shape to it than the other Nikon cameras, but I actually really like it. Compared to the 80D, the Nikon D500 is quite a lot larger, but for me, the Canon 80D might be a little bit better for day-to-day practical use. Being a little bit smaller, it really fits into your hand nicely and might be better if you have smaller hands. Now, both cameras have mode dials on the top left here and also a top LCD screen, which is nice if you want to access your information without looking through the viewfinder or on the back LCD screen. The Nikon also has a dedicated video record button, which is nice to see, and as you'd expect, the Canon 80D also has one, but this time it's on the back. I actually found that it's a little bit easier to access on the back than on the top, where the Nikon has it. On the side here, we have a number of different ports, which I'll talk about a little bit more later on. Now, the D500 is a fully weatherproofed body, which might be important to note, especially if you like to shoot in rougher conditions, whereas on the 80D, it's only partially weatherproof. So overall, if you're going to be using a larger telephoto lenses in a pro environment or a rainy environment, you'll probably want to go for the D500. In fact, no, you'll definitely want to go for the D500. But if you want a smaller, more convenient sized body, the 80D is probably the way to go. So let's quickly take a look at the viewfinders on the back of these cameras. Now, even though they might look different with the Nikon having a round viewfinder compared to the Canon's more traditional viewfinder, I didn't really find much of a difference, and they were both good. Now, both the Nikon and the Canon have 100% viewfinder coverage, and I never really had any problems with either, so I don't think you guys will either. They're both very good viewfinders. Now guys, if you haven't seen it yet, definitely make sure to check out that top list of the best cameras for under $2,000. I'll put a link in the description box below under this video. You can take a look. But anyway, let's get back to this review. Now, staying on the back of these cameras, I wanted to talk about the LCD screens on both of these cameras. To me, the better LCD screen is on the 80D. Now, both of these cameras have articulating screens, but the 80D has a fully articulating screen, which is great. Whereas on the Nikon D500, you can only go up and down. On the Canon 80D, you can actually pull it out and go up, down, and flip it all the way around. It's actually really quite useful. And if you're going to be traveling, you can actually flip it and close it up so you're not going to scratch the screen. Now, having this articulating screen can actually be really good as well if you like to film yourself, which is what I'm doing right now, because you can flip it around and then have it so you can actually see yourself. Whereas on the Nikon D500, you can't really do that. In terms of brightness and clarity though, I actually found that the Nikon was incredibly good, even in bright conditions, but that's not to say that the 80D was bad at all. The 80D's screen also feels a little bit stronger than the Nikon D500, which is a little bit surprising, especially at the join right here. I don't really like the way that Nikon have done this, this movement right here, and you've got to be a little bit cautious with that on the D500. So overall, to me, the better screen and the better LCD screen is the 80D. By the way guys, if you want to see plenty of sample images taken with the Nikon D500, what I'll do is put a link in the description box below under this video and you can take a look at them in your own time. They're worth a look. Now, one thing that I didn't mention before was the touchscreen on the back of both of these cameras. Now, both the D500 and 80D have touchscreens, which is really nice to see, especially on the D500, which is a pro camera where you wouldn't normally expect to see one. But again, even though it's nice to have the touchscreen on the D500, unfortunately, it's not as responsive as on the Canon 80D. The 80D's touchscreen is much quicker than on the D500 and can be used really well to pull focus incredibly quick. But one nice thing on the D500 is that we do have this trigger up the top right here, which is actually really quite useful and is great for changing your focus point really quite quickly. But overall, the Canon 80D's touchscreen is much better, and if you do a lot of video work, having that touchscreen is incredibly useful for changing your focus. Now, I just quickly wanted to talk about the menu systems on both of these cameras, and if you've ever used a Canon or Nikon body, you'll feel right at home on both of these cameras. They've both got a lot of different options for changing pretty much every setting you can think of. Now, I do prefer the mode dial on top of the Canon right here. With the Nikon, it does feel a little bit slower, but again, the preference might be up to you. I did find though that the Nikon D500 was incredibly quick going through its menus, which might be because it's got a slightly faster processor, but also on the other hand, the Canon 80D was also really quite quick going through its menus because you could use that touchscreen as well. So they're both going to be really quite good. Now, one small feature that's included on the Canon 80D that's not featured on the Nikon D500, and probably one of the reasons why you'd call this more of a prosumer camera compared to a pro camera, is that we've got a built-in flash on the Canon 80D. Now, I know a lot of professionals don't actually use a built-in flash, and I don't actually use it that much at all. In fact, the last time I used a built-in flash on a DSLR was a really long time ago. But if you do know that you might need to use the built-in flash, the Canon 80D is definitely the way to go. Now, if you shoot weddings and other events where you really can't miss that shot, you'll really like the feature on the Nikon D500, which is the dual card slots. So on the Nikon D500, you can actually put in 2 cards, whereas on the Canon 80D, you can only put in 1. So if you do know that you really can't miss that shot and you're gonna need that backup, the Canon 80D, you don't have it. The Nikon D500, it's a pro camera and you do have it. Now, I quickly wanted to talk about the burst modes of both of these cameras. Now, the Nikon D500 is quite a lot faster than the Canon 80D, as you'd expect for a camera which is pretty much double the price of it. Now, the Nikon D500 can shoot at 10 frames per second, which sounds a little bit like this. Really machine gun-like, and the Canon 80D can shoot at around about 7 frames per second, which is similar to the 70D, the one that came before it, which sounds like this. So as you can probably gather, the D500 would definitely be the choice if you were going to be shooting a lot of sports, a lot of wildlife, anything that's going to be really fast moving, whereas the 80D is going to work for pretty much most occasions, but if you want the best speed of a camera, you'll definitely be wanting to look at the D500. Now, in terms of stills autofocus performance, the D500 is an incredibly fast camera, and I've been very, very impressed with it. But I've got to say, for most people, the speed of the autofocus on the Canon 80D is probably going to be great. Now, if you are in a pro environment, again, if you really do need that really fast autofocus and that very consistently fast autofocus performance, you will want to go for the D500, but the 80D was really quite good. Now, I'm going to be doing more in-depth autofocus performances between the D500 and the 80D, and also the Canon 7D Mark II. So if you'd like to see that, let me know by leaving a thumbs up on this video. Now, as you've probably gathered in this video, the Nikon D500 is a very good still photography camera, but it can also shoot some really nice video. And as you already know, the Canon 80D is also a very capable video camera. Now, on the one hand, the Nikon D500 can shoot in 4K, and it's a really nice 4K footage. It does, however, have a little bit of a crop in 4K mode, so you will need to compensate with a slightly wider lens. Now, on the other hand, the Canon 80D is still shooting at 1080p, but don't let that put you off because it's got a lot of other fantastic video features up its sleeve. Firstly, the dual pixel autofocus system in the Canon 80D, to me, is still the best autofocusing system in any DSLR on the market today. It's incredibly good, it's incredibly reliable, and it's been upgraded since the Canon 70D. Now, on the side of these cameras, they've both got microphone jacks, which is really nice to see and something you'd expect. But more importantly, they've both now got headphone jacks, which is really important, especially if you want to be able to monitor your audio and make sure you're getting the absolute best audio that you can get. So that was a little bit of a comparison between these two cameras. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, love it if you leave a thumbs up because that's always appreciated. And guys, definitely make sure to check out my best cameras list under $2,000. I think you'll be surprised at what comes in at number 1. I'll put a link in the description box below under this video. Now, I hope you all have a fantastic day and I'll see you next time. Bye.